Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, Take Out Your Own Trash. One day I get to work and look in the bed of my truck to see a bag of trash. First I think it is my girlfriend who was too lazy to walk it to the dumpster of our apartment. No big deal, I'll toss it away. As I am walking to the dumpster at work, it hits me that this is a black trash bag and we have white ones. Little backstory, we live in a rather nice apartment complex and there are pretty strict rules governing the outside of your building. One rule in particular is that no trash is allowed in the hallway, and we learned this the hard way our first week in the new place. A $25 fine and a picture on your door of the bag. Turns out my neighbors had called and complained about the bag after about an hour, and we opened the door to find the fine. Okay, back to the bag. I realized this is not our bag, so I open it, and right there on top is an envelope with our neighbor's address. The same neighbor that complained about our trash and got us fined. Ryan. Joke's on you, buddy. So, I'm on my night shift and finish my shift and stay a little extra late in the morning until about 7:30 to 8 AM. When I got to the house, I set the trash in front of his door and wrote on the envelope, Ryan, you may have forgotten this in my truck, and called the main office to complain about the trash. I go to sleep and wake up around 3 PM and head out to take my dog for a walk. On their door is a picture of the trash and the note, which you can still clearly read, and a notice of $25 fine. Man, that put a little smile on my face, and no one leaves trash in my truck anymore. And you know guys, that reminds me, back in Europe I've always seen arguments between neighbors when it comes to trash separations. Fortunately, or unfortunately, these kinds of arguments don't really seem to happen here in Thailand, but that is mostly because people just put their trash in whatever trash can they want. I mean, that's pretty good when it comes to avoiding neighborly conflicts, but I would say in general it's not really a good thing. The next one is titled, Enjoy Parking Your $100,000 RV on the Street. I was reminded of this earlier and thought I would share. When I was a teenager, parking on our street was a nightmare, particularly because of this parking Nazi that lived across from us. We had a one-car driveway with 4 people in the house that drove their own cars, so somebody had to park in front of a neighbor's house if we were all home. The neighbor in question owned 2 houses next door to each other, one big, one about half the size. The big house where they lived had a driveway you could fit 5 cars in, not to mention a 2-car garage, and the other house had a single-car driveway. The husband parked in the small house driveway, the wife in the big house's garage, and they had a small Saturn they towed behind their RV when they went on vacation. They kept it parked on the street. What this guy would do is try to arrange his Saturn so that nobody could park on his side of the street, and to further block people he kept trash on the curb 7 days a week. This led to words being exchanged, the city getting involved because you cannot put your trash out until the day before trash day. I looked in his trash bags once and it was literally filled with dirt because he was digging up dirt, putting them in bags, putting them on the curb just to regulate parking. Between the 2 houses he had 2 dumpsters and 2 recycle bins. He would space them out in front of both houses like 10 feet apart to prevent people from parking. He would even call the police if a friend visited and would report the car as suspicious. No joke, we had police knock on our door asking about the owner of vehicles numerous times. Finally though, I got my revenge. They had this RV that looked like a tour bus. It was huge, the sides folded out like a home on wheels. Well, one day in the summer he pulled it out and left with it, getting some work done or inspected or something, and that is when I struck. I parked my car directly across from his driveway and my stepdad parked on his side just past his driveway. And there was a utility pole on the other side. He pulls back up later and try as he might, couldn't get the RV back into the driveway. It was way too long. He must have tried for 30 minutes while we all just watched in the front yard. He finally got fed up and parked it on the street. The only catch was you cannot park RVs on the street in my city, so as soon as he went in the house we called the police and complained. The cops come out and harass him, basically tell him he needs to move it soon or he's going to get ticketed and leave. We kept our cars parked like that for a solid week. If someone planned on leaving, we would coordinate so someone else could jump in our spot. We rotated cars out of those spots for the entire week, and you could see him staring out the window every time someone left, only to have someone pull right in behind us. He eventually got it back in when someone had to leave and we couldn't coordinate the parking any longer, but I know he didn't like that RV being on the road, and if he didn't get ticketed, I would be surprised. And guys, if you have ever conducted such a genius petty revenge against your neighbor, then please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments if you enjoy my content. Thank you so much in advance, your help is very much appreciated, and each and every single star and comment and like benefits the channel tremendously. Thank you so much. The next one is titled Loud Party Until 5 AM? Enjoy the pack howling. So, I got these super annoying neighbors across the road. I live in a rather quiet area, mostly elderly people, but the family across the street are this young couple with their 3 kids. They are all horrible, but that's another story. The neighbors likes parties as often as possible, gladly on weekdays too, and they always have their parties outside, and I have no idea what kind of surround system they got, but their music is hella loud and they always party until like 5 AM. It's warm in the summer and I like to sleep with my window open, but even when I am forced to close it, their music is still loud enough for me to hear from across the road. I have asked them several times if they could please not be so loud. I mean, if I can hear it so clearly from such a distance, it must be extremely loud where they are. They always promise to not be as loud next time, and yet the story always repeats itself. One night I was getting so fed up with it as I had a very early and long shift the following day and I was getting no sleep. That is when I planned my revenge. I got 3 big dogs of the breed Alaskan Malamute. If you know the breed, you will know they don't bark a lot, but oh, do they love howling. Pretty much all of the people in the neighborhood got dogs except the idiots across the road. My dogs are usually outside all day since they prefer it like that, and they are just let in for food and to sleep for the night. My garden is huge and long and the fence is lined up against the bicycle path and the path for walking where everyone walks past with their dogs. When my dogs hear another dog barking, one of them will often howl and the others join in. They only howl in the morning though for some reason, so I keep my dogs in during the early morning hours so they won't bother other people. The elderly neighbors in the area hate the loud music and partying from the neighbors too, and even though we have talked to the police about the disturbance, they always shrug it off. I wrote a bunch of notes about my plan and put the notes in the mailbox of everyone in the neighborhood except the idiots across the street. Another party night came. I waited for the right moment to strike. I listened to the music and the guests, they slowly left and the music died down. The last guest left, they were closing down the party and went inside. Lights went out, most likely they went to bed as it was 5 AM at the time, and bam! Who let the dogs out? I sure did. Out the 3 goes, happy and running around in the garden and playing until a person walks by with their dog. The little dog barks upon seeing my 3 dogs, and on cue, one of mine starts howling and the other 2 join in, making quite some noise. After a while, the idiots from across the road come storming out and decide to knock on my door and tell me to make my dogs shut up. I asked them in the sweetest tone if the noise bothered them. Could they not sleep? Did the noise keep them up? The guy of the couple angrily shouted yes and asked if I would take my dogs back inside. I just answered with, "Oh, of course, it won't happen again," and I let my dogs back inside. A few days later, another party night and the plan repeated itself. As soon as the guests were gone and I knew they had gone to sleep, I let my dogs out and the howling began. Angry neighbor storms out and asks what is up with the howling as I had promised to keep them inside. "Oh, like you had promised not to be so loud with your music?" If you're allowed to be so noisy with your music, I'm allowed to let my dogs be noisy. If you keep doing this, then I will too. Your choice." He was not happy and just asked me to make my dogs shut up. They repeated the party terror one more time, followed with the morning howling, and since then they have still the same amount of parties, but the music is much more quiet and the parties now end around midnight on weekdays. Needless to say, the rest of the neighborhood was quite glad I made a stop to the party terror. And ripe stars, even though this is a genius solution to the situation, if I would be OP, I would still be kind of concerned about my dogs because the neighbors seem kind of crazy and I would be worried that they might do something to my dogs. How would you have handled that situation? Let us know in the comments if you have similar concerns. And the next one is titled, "My landlord let us live in crap, so I got her in deep crap." And guys, a little warning, this story is a bit vulgar, so it is still interesting though. It starts like this. This is long, but I promise it is worth it. So, about 5 years ago, I had a terrible landlord. Never fixed anything until it was at crisis point, as she didn't care and wanted to save the money, which ended up costing her way more in the long run due to my underhanded revenge. There are 3 incidents that stand out in my mind. The first happened in mid-August. For months we had been hearing squirrels running in the ceiling and reported this to the landlord, but she refused to hire an exterminator. One day we came home and the house stank worse than anything I can describe. It was definitely a dead animal. The landlord brought us some air freshener scent and said that eventually the squirrel would decompose and the smell would be gone. I asked her to get someone to go find it and she lied and said there was no way to get into the ceiling. A week later I was brushing my teeth and all of a sudden a swarm of flies erupted from the ceiling light. Thousands of flies filled the house and made the bathroom completely unusable. We requested an exterminator and landlord brought fly tape. I was seething and disgusted, so I called animal control and made a report of a dead animal. I called them and they came almost immediately. The house was deemed unfit for living by the health department and she had to put all her tenants up in hotels for a week and hire an exterminator. Episode 2, mid-November, I'm in the basement doing laundry and notice that the furnace is shaking and making a really loud noise. I called the landlord and asked her to come service the furnace and she refused, saying that it was a brand new furnace and nothing was wrong with it. 2 days later, I got home from work to a fire truck and a house full of smoke. A neighbor had called the fire department after hearing the smoke alarms go off for hours on end. When they arrived, the furnace had run out of water and was literally about to explode, and if they hadn't shut the gas off, it could have gone through the floor or caused a major fire. This could have all been prevented if she had come and put some water in it. The fireman said the furnace was unusable and not to attempt to repair it. Knowing that the landlord would ignore this advice, I batted my eyes and said, "Well, I called the landlord about the noise a week ago and she told me it is brand new, so maybe it is still under warranty." This pissed the fireman off supremely and he called the landlord and told her to have a brand new furnace in the home within 3 days or face citations. And now the last and final episode. Mid-April I was doing laundry in the basement and lifted the lid to add something else after it had started. The water was murky brown and smelled gross. I called the landlord and told her the problem and she said it was because it is muddy outside and the recent rain had caused it. Yeah, okay. Next day the basement floor is flooded and pieces of what looks like toilet paper covered the floor. The reality sets in and I immediately go shower, Lysol myself and change my clothes. I call my landlord and tell her we must have a sewage leak citing the toilet paper on the ground. She says no, it is not toilet paper, it is dryer lint. Yeah, okay, at this point I am really mad, so I go back down to take pictures to send her when I hear a toilet flush above me. All of a sudden brown water erupts from a pipe near the washing machine. I call my upstairs neighbor and ask her to flush the toilet again, and sure enough it is the crap water. The landlord says she will send a plumber, but a week later nothing. Turns out we had a blockage that had caused all kinds of problems, not only at our house but the entire street. The city came in and repaired everything. At this point I was seething because the landlord would get a free fix as they didn't know that it had originated at our house. When the city came to fix the damage, I led them into the basement and said, "I'm surprised that no one came out sooner. I told my landlord about this 3 weeks ago." The city worker got really mad and spent the next 3 hours pinpointing the exact issue, which was deemed a result of negligent maintenance. The landlord got stuck with a giant bill from the city. I got the hell out of there. And the next one is titled, "Disrespect my mother, love thy neighbor my ass." Backstory: I lived in a townhome for 20 years or so. My father has been here for 30 plus years, aka since it was built, and we have recently decided to move. In the past few years, all the great neighbors have moved away and were replaced with disrespectful neighbors who happen to live across from me. The last family to move in has to be the worst by far. Let's call them LN, loud neighbors. It is summer break and LN started to practically live in the pool. They leave the pool toys in the pool, trash by the side, and I'm sure the kids see the pool as a gigantic urinal. When they are not in the pool and occasionally decide to go back to their house, they leave their garage open and let their kids run around the complex screaming bloody murder. The mother is standing on the balcony with their tiny dog, who never stops barking and rarely goes inside, drinking wine, watching her kids from below. My mother is a very patient woman who has raised 2 kids in this complex without a single fine from the HOA. The new neighbors have been here for 2 months and get a fine once a week from a nearby neighbor who loves to complain to the HOA. The kids never learn, and one day my patient mother snapped, probably from the stress of eventually moving. She ran down and told the mother that she should teach her kids to be respectful of neighbors and that she's never been fined by the HOA because of her kids. In fact, the neighbors all loved me and my brother, the spark. In response to the criticism, the LN mother screamed back at my mother repeatedly saying, get a life, you need one. Go drink some wine and focus on your own family." I had to run outside and bring my mother back inside to prevent a fist fight. Minutes later, the LN father ran to the pool to get rid of any evidence that they trashed the pool. The petty revenge: I've been working at a restaurant that closes past midnight. Since it takes a while to close and get back home, I usually come home at 1 or 2 AM. The LN's dog is left on the balcony at night and their unit is the closest to the gate and side door. I usually use the gate since it is quieter than the side door, but since LN leaves their annoying dog out late at night, I figured they deserved another HOA complaint. As I was about to use the gate, turned around and opened the side door as much as I could and let it naturally slam as loud as possible. As far as anyone knows, the side door's new hinge has made the door slam, and I was not expecting it to make such a loud noise. Oops. Instantly, the annoying dog started yapping at 2 AM, waking up the LN mother, and she started to shush her dog. I've been doing this every night, and once it happens enough, I will personally file another HOA complaint. Moral of the story: treat everyone with respect if you want to be respected and not get HOA fines. And guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you cannot get enough of my content, then I would suggest to check out my endless playlist, which will hopefully soon show up in the left corner of the screen. And in addition, it would also be nice if you could check out my Patreon at patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive Reddit videos as well as early access to my daily videos. Furthermore, please also visit r/ripestories on Reddit if you have any stories to share of your own. I would be more than happy to read them in a video.